My name is Nefertiti Matos Olivares, and I am a brown-skinned bilingual Latina who is blind and lives with chronic illness.
Nefertiti, it is wonderful to have you as our January 2024 Women on the Move. I've been wanting to feature you on Bold Blind Beauty, so thank you so much for agreeing to an interview with us.
Thank you for having me. It's honestly an honor.
Nefertiti, can you share with our audience your sight loss or blindness journey?
Sure, my sight loss and blindness journey began at a very young age. I was brought into this world, quote unquote, normal. Around age three and a half, I began exhibiting some concerning behaviors. Previous to that, I had begun walking and talking and even reading at a pretty young, impressive age. And yet here I was walking into things, my knees buckling, my eyes crossing, etc., complaining of headaches. Long story short, my family took me to be checked out, and I was diagnosed with a benign astrocytoma, which is doctor speak for a non-cancerous brain tumor. It was removed, but it was not without a major complication, that being that my optic nerve was severely damaged. In fact, for a number of years after my brain surgery, it was thought that I was totally blind. And though I wasn't, it was just such a drastic loss that it took me years to adjust. I'm grateful that mistake was made because it meant that when I was enrolled into elementary school, I went down the track of a totally blind or near totally blind student, which enabled me to be taught Braille and using my cane and things that other students I know now were not privileged enough to experience. Looking back, I understand that these students who were on the low vision or partially sighted track were never given the opportunity to learn Braille, to use the cane and get comfortable with non-visual techniques of navigating the world, in spite of these professionals knowing that the eye conditions of a lot of these kids were progressive ones. So in their adolescence and older years, they were a lot less likely to be able to rely on that vision. And yet they were done this disservice that the vision was just held to a higher standard. So as it concerns the hierarchy of sight, these students were more privileged and seen as more able than students who were totally blind. And I suspect that continues to happen. But for me, what's particularly sad is that within their formative years, when they could have learned literacy skills and comfort with the cane, it didn't happen. Whereas for someone like me, though it was determined later that I did have some usable sight, I had already come with the tools, was prepared with the tools to lead a non-visual life, which is in fact how I lead my life today and always have. I do things like a totally blind person would, despite having some usable vision.
What conversations about pursuing your career sticks with you, and why is this conversation significant to you?
Well, I'm very proud to say that I've had two careers at this point. My first one being as an assistive technology instructor within the New York Public Library system, and the other as it pertains to that leaping into the abyss and pursuing a passion career, which is where I am happily steeped now. It took having a conversation as it relates to pursuing this, especially as a disabled person who really thought that people were speaking truth when they said, oh, stick with what you know and what you've got, because it's going to be super hard to find employment, not just because it's super competitive anyway, but your disability puts you at a real disadvantage. It took me having a very frank conversation with myself, asking myself, is that really true? And deciding that no. And that even if it were true, my happiness was worth the trying of that than to remain unhappy and burnt out and in a position where I genuinely felt that I had gone as far as I was going to go. I had learned as much as I was going to learn. And I was unwilling to continue in a situation that, one, took employment away from someone who would be genuinely happy in that position, who could learn things that they hadn't learned before, exposed to opportunities that they hadn't been exposed to previously, but also my happiness, my well-being. As somebody with chronic illness, it is of the utmost importance that I maintain stasis. And I really began feeling my emotional wellness taking a toll on my physical wellness. And I just wasn't willing to do that anymore. Mind you, Stephanie, this happened in the thick of the pandemic that I had this realization and that I began listening to myself and talking to myself and determining that my happiness needed to come to the fore. And how was I going to achieve that? It was by pursuing my passion of audio description, writing it, quality controlling it, narrating it, and seeing more, hearing more voices and seeing more people like me doing the work. By people like me, I mean blind, I mean brown. I wasn't really seeing much of that, hearing much of that. I've always believed in be the change you want to see. And that's what I pursued, and that's what I've managed in a short 2 years. In fact, yesterday was my 2-year anniversary of leaving the New York Public Library and having a soft landing at a small company that unfortunately, or fortunately, as it turns out, did not work out for me. And finding myself steeping in another fear of mine, which was unemployment. But through that, joining what is now known as the Audio Description Collective, and through other outward facing endeavors, making a bit of a name for myself and having my wonderful boss now, Reese Lloyd, studio head at Descriptive Video Works, notice me, begin to value me, create a position for me, and after a little bit of negotiating, offering me my dream job. For me, my career trajectory, especially in such a short time, continues to serve as a remarkable example of, after we've experienced what seems like a big loss, there really can be tremendously rewarding gains. And so for anyone out there possibly considering that where you are right now isn't necessarily where you belong, though you may fit in, give yourself the chance to pursue other avenues. It may really, really surprise you how much further you'll go and how much more fulfilled you'll be. I speak from experience.
What advice can you give to aspiring voice artists and audio descriptive narrators and writers? And how about for young adults who are career exploring?
I'll start with the young adults career exploring. There are a lot of people who take a bit of a gap year to do an internship or to travel. I did not necessarily go down that path, but I can totally appreciate the value of that, of getting to know yourself better, of exposing yourself to varying experiences, cultures, languages. If you have it within your purview to travel, I highly recommend that. And again, if there's an internship that you want to pursue for a career path or a particular field you're interested in, but you're not quite sure about, then try it. Try to get that internship. Try to just really expose yourself to the varying avenues open to you. You may feel that as a blind or disabled person, there aren't as many avenues open to you. And depending on where in the country or where in the world you are, that may be absolutely true, which is rather unfortunate. But depending again on where you are, resources available to you, opportunities open to you, I am a big believer in pursue what you can, before adhering to whatever someone else might want for you, or even what you think you might want for you. If you're certain, good, go for it. I wish you all the best. But if you're not, I think that this is the perfect time for you to explore as much as you can. That said, if you think that you want to be a voice artist, you want to be involved with the audio description creation process, be that as a writer, a quality control specialist, a narrator, an audio engineer, a project manager, then I say give it a shot. But know that as of right now, those jobs are typically not a job that can be pursued on a full-time basis. This means that it is very much in the gig economy. Let's take the narrator position. You write in to a company that you're interested. The company gets back to you, says, okay, sign our NDA. This is our pay structure. Send us a demo, reading these scripts, and we'll put you on our voice roster. We'll be in touch with you if we find a project where your voice is a good match, and we'll take it from there. Well, it could be weeks or months or longer before a job comes up where your voice is considered a good match. And not for nothing, but your voice could be considered a good match and you're sick that day. And so the voice project, the narration has to go to someone else. It can be such a variable sort of way of working that most folks can't honestly make a living this way. So pursuing something else is likely in your best interest. Now, if you can get a staff position somewhere, kudos to you. That's what's happened with me, and I feel tremendously fortunate. But that's not the average experience. The average is you are called based on need, and life can happen, which may preclude you from a gig, and it can be days, weeks, months before you're called into a studio or asked to record remotely from whatever your setup is at home. So the long and short of it is, pursue your passion, your love, your interest, whatever it is, by all means, but be clear on the fact that most of these roles, as it pertains to audio description specifically, are very gig based. And so you might want to have a backup. In fact, I would highly encourage you to keep your avenues of employment wide open.
That's great advice. Nefertiti, what has been your proudest achievement and why is that?
Honestly, my proudest achievement has been surviving and keeping myself alive. I mentioned chronic illness earlier, and I'll now share that I am a transplant recipient. At this point, I am a twice transplant recipient. I received a kidney from my mother when I was in my late teens. It lasted for 15 years. And after almost a couple of years of dialysis for the second time, I received a kidney and pancreas transplant about 6 months ago. And so, in addition to the brain surgery I had as a child, the first kidney transplant I had as a teen, and now my second kidney transplant and my first pancreas transplant, though to be clear, kidney and pancreas was one major surgery, I have survived quite a lot. So it's been a wild life, wild, like successfully wild, but also painfully, both physically and emotionally. And it's been a lot. And I'm still here through the pain, through the scars, through the grief. I am still here. So for me, that is my proudest achievement, that I am brave and strong and can hold myself with my head held high to live another day.
I think that's the greatest achievement that any of us can have. And yet we tend to just gloss right over it. But you brought it right back to just the mere fact of being alive and surviving all the things that you were going through, that's your proudest achievement. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. And you can look to my successes within my careers, and you can look to me trying my best to be a virtuous person with morals and ethics and all of that. Super important, absolutely. But I have to be alive for all of that. And it's been a very hard won life. I haven't always wanted to be alive. That's the truth, too. And yet I overcame that. And I'm still here in spite or despite or because of all of these things. And that is absolutely something to be proud of and to be celebrated. And I hope that anybody coming across this interview can assimilate that and can make that part of their everyday gratitude practice, or whatever you do. Remember, you are here, and that's important. And sometimes that's all we have. That has to be enough.
Thank you again so much for sharing that with us. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
This goes particularly to the folks who are losing their sight or who will someday perhaps find themselves without sight. You can still live a fulfilling, proud life. There is still joy to be had. If you are already blind and having a really hard time, there is help. There is therapy. There are things and methods that you can adopt to find peace within, to find joy, to put that joy out into the world. Your life isn't over simply because you have to experience it differently. And I know, again, the premium that is put on sight, but there is so much more richness to life, to experience, to sensation than just sight or relying so heavily on sight. Think of taste, think of touch, think of hearing, think of scent, and think of cognitively your ability to understand, to assimilate new concepts, to teach. All these things don't have to rely on sight, don't need sight for happening. So please, if you're feeling discouraged, depressed, unworthy, less than, remember that sight isn't what makes or breaks you. It doesn't have to be the sense that defines you. You are still worthy, and you can still move ahead, move forward. Grieve if you must. Absolutely. It's a loss. That is understandable, respectable. But please don't stay mired in the muck of what you've lost or what you're losing. Please remember that there is life. And while there is life, there's hope. And while there's hope, there's everything, really.
That was beautiful. Thank you.